Hey everybody, I'm back with a new uh, video, spoiler review of Thor Ragnarok. I want to make sure I get through, at least cover as much as the MCU as I can on this channel, but I have not covered the Avengers films, but I want to make sure I got all these solo movies out over and done with. So Thor Ragnarok, well, Thor 2 as well, but I really do not want to watch Thor 2. So I was going to cover Thor Ragnarok before I get into all the Avengers films and cover those soon. I just did a comic book review of the very first Avengers comic. At least cover the first dozen uh, uh, Avenger issues. So after this, I will be rewatching the first Avengers film and reviewing that. Then Avengers 2, then uh, Civil War. And around that time, we'll be covering the comic book that the movie is based on, the Civil War, and covering that in terms of like the comic. And then after that, Infinity War and Endgame, which around that time I'll be covering the most iconic Marvel event, the Infinity the Infinity Gauntlet or the Infinity Quest or something like that. I forgot the exact title, but we'll be covering that. Which personally I have not read. I've seen images of, and I know obviously how the story had went about, but not in its totality. So it'll be very interesting with me actually going through the comic itself. As a matter of fact, because I don't know if I'll bring it up later when I do get around to it, one of the most uh, biggest images that kind of struck me as a kid when that comic was, popping off was in the early phases when Spider-Man is swinging around the city, and then all of a sudden you get this massive spider sense going off that darn near killed him over. Is when Thanos in the comics caused half of the population to randomly disappear. That always stuck with me. But when I get there, I will definitely hash it out. But it'll be fun to reread that, or at least actually read that. Anyway, we're not talking about it right now, but I'm going to talk about Thor. Which, matter of fact, now think about it, I should, get around to picking out a Thor comic to cover, because the last Thor comic I reviewed was the arc where he met Gore the God Butcher. That was the last Thor comic that I covered. So I need to revisit a Thor comic. But anyway, so Thor Ragnarok, which is probably the most profitable Thor movies out of all four Thor films. And personally, this movie and the first Thor film is probably like the best ones. And ironically, I think I slightly now actually have some time to marinate on it. I think I like Thor 2 probably slightly more than Love and Thunder, because Love and Thunder had more potential. And you're coming off on a highly successful sequel, and you completely dropped the ball. Taika Waititi, it's like, I'm not sure what his mind was. He just doesn't bother to read any of the Thor comics because, according to him, they're boring. But it's like, I don't know. It's just, there's some standards that you should have if you're adapting a character. You do need to go through stuff to at least appreciate the character a little bit more and have some kind of ground to or foundation to stand up on. Anyway, it's directed by Taika Waititi. uh, starring Chris Hemsworth as Thor, uh, Tom Hiddleston as Loki. Waititi plays this character called Korg, who people really like, but I don't care for. He's kind of annoying to me. Got Kate Blanchett as Hela. God, she was so hot in this. Oh God, it's like the hottest I've ever seen Kate Blanchett look in a movie, and it's like the most step on me mommy energy I ever seen. We got Idris Elba as Heimdall, Jeff Goldblum as the Grand Master, Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie, Carl Urban as Scourge, Mark Ruffalo returns as Hulk, Anthony Hopkins as Odin. And of course, we got Tennobu Asano, Ray Stevenson, and Zachary Levi reprise their roles as the Warriors 3, but no Sif. She doesn't come back until Love and Thunder. Even then, is very uh, little appreciation of this character. Just period. Anyway, and this is set a couple years after the events of Avengers 2, where Thor is taking on Surtur, voiced by Lex Luthor slash Mr. Krabs himself, and plans on, because just like in the Norse mythology, Surtur is the catalyst to kick off Ragnarok, the apocalypse of Asgard. But Thor, getting information from Surtur, thinks like, oh well, the only way to stop Ragnarok is to just knock off his crown. Now, this movie is very funny, but I think most people, I didn't get it when this came out. When people, some people's biggest complaint is that it's like too jokey. I didn't understand what they talk about in this film, but because I didn't feel it that personally, not until Love and Thunder is when now I can see the whole jokiness, not even just with Thor film, but just with the whole Marvel formula, where it's like you don't need to insert a joke every 5 to 10 minutes. It's just like you gotta let a certain scene just sit there for a minute. Anyway, he destroys Surtur and takes back his crown to put into the vault in Asgard, where he finds out that Loki's been impersonating Odin, who in Thor 2, at the end of Thor 2, Loki replaced him. And so they end up going back to Midgard to find where Loki stashed him, which was a old folks home, but it's being demolished. So now they gotta now we gotta find him, because he's somewhere that we don't know where he is. And I love this scene. Is very funny to me, where a fangirl see Thor, and of course they go fawning all over him, and like just the look on Loki's face is like, oh my god, it's just so annoyed that the praise and admiration that everybody gives Thor, and he's just so annoyed. But it's like, I also want to point out, it's like, you don't recognize the guy who damn near leveled New York a few years back, standing right next to him. Because I'm surprised, even though they're humans, they probably won't be able to do anything to him being a literal god. But well, then again, Jane did manage to punch him in the face in Thor 2, which even then it's like shouldn't have been even possible for a human to actually do any kind of harm with a punch without breaking their own hand, because the guys, they probably have like strength, bit of invulnerability by comparison to a human. But it's just like, why ain't nobody trying to punch him on sight? But whatever. But all of a sudden, Loki disappears. then a card is left behind for Thor to visit Bleecker Street to meet with Doctor Strange. And most argue this is probably the most accurate Doctor Strange that we've seen in the MCU, even down to the yellow gloves that he would have, which they kind of abandoned that. It's like, it's funny that Taika Waititi apply that for Doctor Strange here, but every other instance outside of this moment, we never see him with his iconic yellow gloves. That is weird, but I love how Doctor Strange is using this. It's very funny, where he agrees to help him find Odin if he takes Loki with him, so he won't do any more damage to Earth than he already had. So he just, teleports Thor all around with his little goblet of beer. Now I kind of want a beer after seeing all that stuff, and he shows him the doorway to where he can find Odin, which is in Norway, which kind of makes sense because Norway is the hub where Vikings mostly roamed. But then you get a most iconic scene is it's like, I've been falling for 30 minutes. And it's, I love how like Doctor Strange just like isn't bothered by Loki at all, given the fact that he's Sorcerer Supreme, and he's kind of just pants Loki, who is a sorcerer in his own right, but just totally pants him completely. But they finally meet up with Odin, who says he's about to die, but he warns them that you have a sister. I kept her locked away because she is a bloodthirsty monster, and my power is the only one that kept her in check. But once I die officially, she'll be released. So you gotta handle that, pretty much. She sews up in the most sexy way I've seen, tells them to kneel, and it's like, no. Thor throws his hammer. She catches that sucker, crushes it, which is like unprecedented. And they try to, dip off via the Bifrost, but she quickly catches up with them, tosses them out the wormhole, which they end up landing in Sakaar. She ends up on Asgard, kills the Warriors 3, and this is the biggest con I have for this film, and a lot of people will agree that the callous way they treated the Warriors 3, where they couldn't even, aside from Hogan, they didn't get the other two of the Warriors 3 didn't get like a proper fight to the death. I mean, like, I think people wouldn't mind the whole idea that, okay, they die via Hela, but at least give them a good fight to earn that death. It was just very unceremoniously. It's just like zip zip, swatting flies, and it's like, even like you see like a battle with like Hogan and all the other warriors of Asgard. They actually put up a decent fight to make them like a worthy deaths. They're being like Asgardians. Their heaven is a battle, and they had to die a warrior's death in order to go to their Viking heaven. But it is just like, man, come on, you didn't do them justice at all, and a lot of people are still kind of upset about that. And where's Lady Sith? She's off somewhere else. It's like, matter of fact, now I'm thinking about it, you couldn't even bring her back for Endgame, knowing that she's obviously alive, or did she disappear along with everybody else. It's like no respect for Lady Sith or the Warriors 3 aside from maybe Hogan. Oh man, that is uh, bonkers, man. Anyway, uh, she pretty much quickly takes over with Scourge, who isn't exactly Scourge in the comics, who's is a kind of a villain, who is pretty much like the uh, uh, who rides on the coattails of, well, pretty much like a lost puppy dog for uh, the Enchantress, which we don't ever get the Enchantress in this film. In the we get her apprentice in Agents of Shield, which you could have just made her the Enchantress in the first place. But no, there's certain things that like the MCU just did not bother with to adapt, because Scourge here seems, he gets like a cool moment towards the end. It's not bad, but it's just like he's not like Scourge that we see in the comics, who's like a lethal villain with his own axe. His axes have to be given to him by or created by Hela herself, whereas it's kind of like, it's kind of lame because his executioner's axe is his. Uh, uh, but Heimdall managed to slip away with some Asgardian civilians along with his sword that is the key to unlocking the Bifrost. Uh, this prevents her from escaping Asgard, because if she managed to get to the other realms, it'll cause utter devastation. That's why Odin locked her away, because he stopped at 9 realms because she was his executioner. Like Scourge is going to be like, she wants him as her executioner. Uh, and by the way, Scourge was kind of a coward for most of the film, because I mean, not a coward. He's just like, he doesn't want to die. I won't say he's kind of like a charlatan of an Asgardian, but he came in at the clutch at the end, so I respect him for that. But Heimdall is kind of scrolling away civilian Asgardians, because Hela gets more powerful the more she stays on Asgard. So Heimdall's was buying time until Thor shows back up to deal with it, because he's the next in line to rule Asgard since Odin's not around anymore. So he's the one that's going to be needed to deal with her. But while on Sakaar, Thor gets picked up by as a surprise to Thor, a Valkyrie who works for this Grand Master played by Jeff Goldblum. Now, the Grand Master in the comics is a cool character who's obsessed with games. He's kind of like an elder god being, and he is the brother to the Collector. Now, you remember the Collector from the MCU, the Guardians films. He's obsessed with collecting things. And it's like, you got Benicio del Toro as the Collector and Jeff Goldblum as the Grand Master. We need those two actors in the MCU together. I need them together, because that'd be so freaking dope. With those two actors just chewing the scenery, man, it's like, come on, it's like, it'd be so much fun. So Thor is surprised to see Loki there, and he was apparently there for like 2 weeks, because time like runs different in Sakaar, I guess. And so, in order for Thor to leave and escape, he has to participate in the Grand Master's gladiatorial arena and beat his champion, which turns out to be a Hulk. which leads to another funny moment where Thor gets, tossed around the same way Loki did in Avengers, and Loki's guess was like, "Ha! How does that feel?" Gets me every time. I love that scene. That is like a joke that is earned. Because why wouldn't you make a comment about that moment? So, you see, Thor is about to win, but of course, thanks to the inhibitor little shock collar that Valkyrie put on him, he didn't want his champion to lose, so Grandmaster shocks Thor and Hulk knocks him unconscious. And of course, we get a talking Hulk. And there's a funny dynamic between Hulk and Thor. Play very well. But Thor needs help in order to get off Sakaar, because Hulk got here by the Quinjet, which is still intact. So, he's been there for a couple of years, apparently, to gain all this kind of fame from all the people there. He convinces Hulk to utilize his friendship with Valkyrie to convince her to come into the room so he have a talk with her. But mostly because she doesn't want to get involved because she lost her Valkyrie sisters in a fight against Hela, which she's still traumatized by because her girlfriend got snuffed up by her. So she's just spent her life at on Sakaar this whole entire time. So he managed to take away her little shock collar controller, release the thing so he can escape. So another funny moment where he's trying to access his passcode to activate the Quinjet, and he trying to put it all as like Thor, Odin's son, strongest Avenger, access denied. And damn you, Stark. Point break. Access granted. I remember in the theater that got the biggest laugh in the theater. It was like Tony being like a utter troll. So Hulk shows up trying to keep his friend Thor, on the planet. But Thor managed to switch on like a recording of Black Widow, who, it was a weird thing with Joss Whedon at the time was trying to establish some weird relationship with Hulk and Black Widow, which is completely unnecessary and out of the blue, unearned. But she is able to calm her down, which, reverts Hulk back to Banner, who is shocked the fact that he's been Hulk for 2 years. Because the last thing we remember is Sokovia. So, then run into Valkyrie after she, ties up Loki, because they got the Grandmaster's favor, and it's like he's searching for his champion and Thor. So the three managed to come up with a plan in order to get off the planet via the Rosenbridge wormhole thing, which they call the Devil's Anus. Hate that name. But they need like a strong ship, which the only stronger ship is the Grandmaster ship that he used for orgies, which is gross. But fighting off the people chasing now, cool display of action. And honestly, I also want to bring up the fact that a lot of the characters, the guards, and the look of the palace itself looks very Jack Kirby, which I respect, and I love that. It's like a perfect example of proper adaptation and not making it look dumb. I mean, Sure, you can. Some might argue it still look dumb, but it's just like very comic accurate. It's like here you are. It's like you're literally watching a Jack Kirby illustration come to life, and I completely respect that. I love that. Straight off the page. Uh, Not sure if that was like a decision made by Taika Waititi or other similar Takawas or whomever, but somebody I doubt is Taika Waititi. But even still, whoever got that, who came up with that, it's like all respect to you, man or lady. So they managed to make their way through the Devil's Anus to get to Asgard. And there's a sweet moment where Thor has a heart to heart with Loki before they do the get help joke. Whereas Thor says like, "Hey, I always thought the world of you, brother." But then, of course, knowing his brother is like gonna betray him, like right on cue, and it's like, look, I anticipated that he slipped on like this is like a very the growth with Thor up to this point is played very well. That he's not like a dumb like just a musclehead. Okay, he's like an arrogant prince in the first movie who learned how to be a hero. He learned to work with people in the Avengers and learns to care for others and learn about like leadership in the second film and responsibility. Now we're at the point where it's like, like he's shown like I knew he was gonna be like that. Round and round we go, cause like I've grown. You seem to not have grown at all. You're doing the same tricks, so that's why I got one up on you. Cause he slipped on like a little like the shock collar disc thing on his back while trying to give him like a power on the back. So the trickster got tricked, essentially. So he left Loki there, but got picked up by Korg, who shows up in Asgard as kind of like a backup, while Valkyrie, Hulk, and Thor deal with Hela, her wolf Fenrir, and all the zombie guards, and takes them all on. Thor ends up losing an eye, very much like his father, who had to give up his eye for wisdom. And while fighting Hela, he sees a vision of his father, who says to him, like, "Look, I'm not strong as you. Like, I'm not nothing without my hammer." And the father is like, "Are you the god of hammers?" It's like, "I gave you that hammer so you can be able to channel your power. The power comes within you. You are grown enough to, because essentially the hammer was training wheels. You don't need that anymore." So now we see channeling lightning and Led Zeppelin. Thor managed to beat back Hela, but he knows he still doesn't have the power to utterly destroy her. So he gets Loki to sneak inside, who he managed to take the cosmic cube along the way, managed to get Surtur's crown, place it in the this sacred fire, which kicks off Ragnarok. 1 second, everybody. I gotta pick up something really quick. Sorry, really quick. Be right back. Sorry about that. Had to pick up my grub up. Sorry. Anyway, uh, where was I? Yeah, so he uh lost an eye. So he channeled his inner lightning and Led Zeppelin. Once again, a lot. We're at that point where a lot of these moments are just giant rock ballad album covers. When he's just like leaping off the castle, like charging into like a large piling crowd of zombie warriors, complete like just a giant album cover. Just with the power of Led Zeppelin, he's like taking out these goons along with Valkyrie and Hulk, taking down Fenrir, uh, and uh, Loki setting off the chain reaction for Ragnarok via Surtur, who's destroying everything, all the while Scourge, who dies by Hela after making sure all the Asgardian civilians make it safely on the ship that Korg and the others was using. Uh, um, so, of course, while uh, while it's futile, Hela still tries to utilize spikes to take down Surtur, but he finally was the only one to destroy her by crushing her via his giant fiery blade as he destroys the entire realm of Asgard. And so now Thor is king, leading his people, which is bittersweet because we got like a post-credit scene with Thanos showing up with his ship, and if you recall from Infinity War, half of the Asgardians end up being murdered off. I think maybe Valkyrie managed to get most of the Asgardians off the planets they could, and I'm not sure how that transpired, but you still see like some bodies of Asgardians laid out, along with Heimdall, who ends up dying at that point, which is a shame. But he dies like a badass though. But that was pretty much Thor Ragnarok. Still a very funny film. It's like very colorful too, because I think Marvel Studios took the criticism and lessons that people had about the first two Thor films, where I don't think people appreciated the first Thor film as they probably should have been, because it was directed by Kenneth Branagh, which I think we should bring back to direct the next Thor film, because, like I said, Taika Waititi went completely off the rails. They need to be pulled back a bit with some. Kenneth Branagh can direct some funny scenes, but he knows how to balance it out with the serious moments. I think I need to come back to that director. But the first two Thor's films wasn't all that colorful. And I agree, Thor Ragnarok seems to be taking like too much inspiration. This and Love and Thunder took too much inspiration from the Guardians films, where this is their speed and Thor is like a different animal. Not to say you can't take some inspirations, but you just borrow too heavily, it's just not much of a Thor film at a certain point. So they made this movie a little bit more colorful and a little bit more fun, instead of just probably too serious. Because I guess the first Thor film was like very dramatic, especially the second one was very dramatic. It's like they can't seem to find the right tone for Thor. But I argue that the first Thor film, I think that is probably like the director that they need. Also, maybe take uh, uh, some little bit of lessons from Taika Waititi in terms of making it an enjoyable film and a fun watch, but not. I think Kenneth Branagh knows to do the research and know like, okay, we need to have some levity in here, not making a joke machine. I'm pretty sure, unlike Taika Waititi, I think Kenneth Branagh can say like, can understand the line between being a joke machine and having some levity. And you know, I think you need to scale back. You know, back in the next Thor film, and probably find the proper tone. And I think somewhere in the mix between Ragnarok and the first Thor film is the sweet spot for Thor. My personal opinion. Uh, and probably adapt some proper Thor stories. Because the Gorda Gar Butcher arc was an incredible story, and Taika Waititi completely shit the bed on that one. Completely. Because, like, I didn't get a chance to explain it in my review of that movie, but it's just like, you know, Gore the God the Butcher, where we don't see much butchering with actual gods. It could have been like almost like horrific stories we only hear or seen glimpses of. It's like a guy who pretty much is an atheist by and large, who is like, you know, it could have been like a murder mystery thing with Thor, which Kenneth Branagh, being like a guy who's done murder mystery films, could have been utilized very well, where Thor just going through clues and a bunch of dead gods, and it's like, okay, who has the capability of killing these gods, and just adapt some moments where Thor has dealt with a butcher capable of taking on very powerful gods that can even rival his father. It's so much you could have done with that, and he Taika Waititi kind of shit the bed with that one. But anyway, I still love this film. It's still like a great Thor film. Uh, but let me know in the comments below. Have you recently seen Thor Ragnarok? Does it still hold up to you? And the next coming weeks for movie reviews, I'll be covering the Avengers films. I haven't seen them all in quite a while, so it'll be fun to revisit them. And around the same time, I'll be covering some of the comics that they're based off of. So look forward to that. I will see you guys tomorrow for more gaming content. And yeah, see you all soon. Take care. Have a good night. Peace.